And good evening. Good to see everybody. So thankful that you made it a priority to come out to prayer meeting tonight. We're not only going to pray together, but we're going to get into the Word together. You know how much I have enjoyed this series already, getting taught by my dad. Somebody could build the case that he tried to do a little bit of that with me over the years, and I didn't listen. And maybe he's going to get it right now, straighten me out. I know some of you are rooting. The fact is, while I make a joke, I am thoroughly enjoying this study. And I think that you are too. It seems like the more people who try it out, we don't lose you. You keep coming back, and we're seeing this study grow. And we thank the Lord for the way that He's blessed it already. Listen, we are going to collect prayer needs, and at the end this evening, we're going to pray together as we have been. There are prayer cards on each of the 4 pillars in the room. Please fill that out. Be as clear as possible. Andy is back, and he told me that he'd be nice to me if I would make sure those are clear, okay? So get those clear if you would, because he's going to do our prayer time for us at the end of our Bible study this evening. I also wanted to say this. Some of you are online with us now. Love it that technology has gotten us together this evening. And so we're happy to hear from you also if you have prayer needs, but you need to sign in on your YouTube page, and you need to fill in those prayer needs, if you would please, in the comments section. And then one of our young men will collect those, and at the end of our time tonight, we'll pray together, okay? And we'll collect those prayer needs, and we'll pray over those prayer needs as well. So once again, you be clear also, and we'll collect those and do those together. We're going to take just a moment. We're going to pray. We're going to ask the Lord to bless our time together this evening, and then our teacher, Brother Lee Coppock, is coming to teach this evening. Lord, thank you so much for the opportunity that we have to get together in your word tonight. We come together in the name of Jesus, knowing that we'll be taught by your word and ultimately, Father, by your Spirit. Thank you for leading us tonight into truth. Please give us your life-changing truths and convert our souls, change our lives, Lord, by your word and by the effectiveness that's there. Teach us tonight from your word. I pray also, Lord, for needs tonight. I know that many people have burdens and struggles that they've brought in the door with them tonight. Naturally, Lord, we are frail people, and we desperately need your power and your strength, your solutions, your prescriptions, your wisdom. And so we pray, Father, as we bring not only needs to you tonight, that you would bring to us wisdom and help, provision, protection, guidance. We're coming to you tonight for all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay. Well, all right. We are tonight, as I had indicated, I thought we would be. We're in Proverbs chapter 6. Generally speaking, all the verses from Proverbs will appear on your screen. I will be bringing in some verses from some other places which I did not get on a slide, and so I'll give you the reference, and you can follow if you can, if you choose whatever. But we're good. We're going to start in Proverbs chapter 6. The first 2 sections of Proverbs 6 have 2 particular specific warnings for us. The first one is a warning against surety. In other words, co-signing for a debt. Now, I'm guessing that there have been some folks here in the sound of my voice who have some experience with this on one end or the other. Certainly the instructor has on both. There are verses specifically here, and then, of course, there are several other places in Proverbs where there are references made to this same activity, that is, serving as surety or co-signing for someone else's debt. So let's look at what these verses here have to say. It says, "My son, if thou be surety for thy friend, if thou hast stricken thy hand with a stranger." Some of the translations have the word "or," where that comma is after friend. In other words, if it's somebody that you know very, very well, maybe a family member, whatever, if you've agreed to be surety for somebody you know very, very well, or perhaps for somebody you know not so well, you got issues. There are potential problems that go with that. Some of you could speak to that if you chose. And say, the fact of the matter is it's a practice which is fraught with peril. FWP, fraught with peril. That's what that is. You are snared with the words of thy mouth, thou art taken with the words of thy mouth. Verse 3, "Do this now, my son. Deliver thyself when thou art come into the hand of thy friend. Go humble thyself, make sure of thy friend." In other words, do your best to get out of it. Do your best to avoid this altogether. This is not the kind of a thing that's recommended for us to be surety, for us to be co-signers for others. Now, for whatever reason, we were not favored with the reason why in this particular scripture. or when this was particularly problematic. But there is another place in Proverbs. Actually, there's more than one of the place which references this, but there's another place which specifically says, it tells us what the issue is, what the problem is. And so I go now to Proverbs 22. And in Proverbs 22, we read, "Be thou not thou one of them that strike hands, or of them that are sureties for debts." You see exactly the very same subject. And it tells us why. It says, "If thou hast nothing to pay, why should he take away thy bed from under thee?" Here's the issue. First of all, I need to point this out. There's nothing in these verses which negates or diminishes the admonitions we get in Proverbs so many times and other places in Scripture, that when there's somebody we know that has a need, a particular need, and we are in a peculiar position to help them with that need, we should be doing that. We should be helping meet that particular need. So there's nothing about these verses which negates that. There's nothing at all. But what these verses do say is that there are some. I don't want to leave that too soon. But there are some circumstances under which, when we are surety for someone else, maybe for a very good reason, they're unable to meet their obligations. Look at the last verse there that is on the screen. "If thou hast nothing to pay, why should he take away thy bed from under thee?" In other words, we should not expose ourselves to our very basic needs when depending on someone else to meet their obligations. That's what it comes down to. There should not be an occasion when we subject ourselves to exposure to our basic needs. The bed's fairly basic. Fairly basic. That's going too far. I will tell you that as I read these verses and others in Proverbs, I see no prohibition for the following. Hypothetically, this never happened, or I wouldn't use the hypothetical if it had. If one of my kids came to me and said, "Papa, you know what, I need a refrigerator, and whatever, would you co-sign?" And hypothetically, if I could buy that refrigerator for them if I chose to. In other words, if I had the money, I see no prescription against me doing that to help them establish their credit to do what they need to do. Recognizing that if they're not going to take my bed away from me, they might take some cash from me if necessary. For some reason, they couldn't pay. But understand this is not a good practice. Exposing yourself to your basic needs, depending on somebody, whoever it is. People, bless their hearts, bless your hearts, bless my heart. Things happen. And as a result, this is not one of those things in which we ought to be involved. All right. The second warning is about laziness. Now, laziness, slothfulness. Yep. For several years, I worked before I went back to school. I worked for a company called Snelling and Snelling. Some of you recognize the name. Bob Snelling, who he and his dad founded this company, they became what was generally recognized at a particular period of time in the 80s as being the authority on employment. He met several times with the Secretary of Labor. He wrote a book on jobs. He generally was the one who knew about jobs. Incidentally, he's a good friend, still living. He and I share grandchildren. His daughter married my oldest son. But in any event, he said there's two things that make a person unemployable, or if they're employed, make them so you cannot advance them. There's two things, and one of them is laziness. You can't work with somebody who's just plain lazy. Can't help them. I mean, I'm sorry. If that's an issue, then that's an issue. Let's talk about what the verse says. "Go to the ant, thou sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise. Which having no guide, overseer, or ruler." Now, you're going to see what the ant does, but you can all picture them. And the fact of the matter is they got no supervisor, no spouse who supervises, no boss, nobody telling them what to do. Watch them. Let's watch them. Let's watch the ant and learn. "Provideth her meat in the summer and gathereth her food in the harvest." She provides for today. In other words, she takes care of. I use the pronoun she because that's the one that's there. I assume they're not all females, but she provides for today, and she also provides for eventualities, because sometimes things happen. That's right. Sometimes we need something more than just to satisfy our needs for today. And so the ant, as an example, takes care of her needs for now and also puts something back for the future. One of the practices of the church, you know it or don't know it, it's a good thing, is that to have money for instances when there might be some need for something and for some reason that to account for something that was unexpected. Unexpected things happen. The ant prepares. How long will thou sleep, O sluggard? When will thou rise out of that sleep? Well, bless their hearts. Some folks just like to sleep. I mean, I'm sorry, you've known people like that. You get a little sleep, a little folding, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that traveleth, and thy want as an armed man. Here's the thing. Here's the way it is. The ant makes no excuse. Makes no excuse. The ant does what the ant needs to do. Starts her day or whenever, her night, whatever she is busy. Starts it without somebody telling her she needs to, and does what she needs to do. One of the verses that I think is just really, actually there are two verses that say almost exactly the same thing in Proverbs. We'll come to them later. Whether we'll address them then or not, I'm not sure. Again, many of these verses come up over and over again, and so we won't do them every time, but there's Proverbs 22:13 and Proverbs 26:13 say substantially the same thing. The slothful says, there's a lion in the streets. They have an excuse. There's some reason they don't want to get out and go to work, and they got an excuse for it. Listen, I might get eaten up. There's a lion in the streets. Now, I have assiduously avoided political opinions. I've really, really tried. I may go there tonight. I'm going to do my best. I will tell you this, if I go somewhere and you see it differently, write the preacher. That's all I can tell you. Just write the preacher. Write the preacher. Okay. But let me just tell you this. This is my view. That people that don't want to go back to work today, it's an excuse. There is no good reason why people don't want to go back to work. I will tell you the ones that trouble me the most, in part because this is what I did for a living when I was making a living, and that is teaching. It bothers me that people do not want to go back to the classroom. They just want to go back to the classroom. I know from personal experience that some of the professors with whom I worked, they would say, well, you know what? It works just as well when I teach from home. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Yes, it's possible to teach, and from home I did. I had a class, I taught from home. But I will tell you, there is no excuse, my view, there is no excuse for people not working today. There are jobs, hello class, laziness, I'm telling you, is a part of it. I'm not saying it's the only thing. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying there aren't some people who are particularly vulnerable. I'm not saying there are some people who are well justified in determining that, you know, this is from a timing standpoint, I'm okay with all of that. But in the main, laziness is part of it, and you can't help that unless they, of course, help themselves. There are some folks, of course, who are lazy in a particular area or for some particular reason or whatever. But the truth of the matter is, it is overcomable. It is. The Lord will give grace. We mostly think of children, of course, when we talk about lazy. You may know some kids who early on give evidence of being lazy, something lacking industry. But I have determined over the years, I've been young and now I'm not so young. No, that's true. I know you're going to find fault with that, but that's true. That sometimes adults are, but they find other ways to disguise it. They find other ways to pretend they're not lazy. They're a little smarter at it than sometimes than the kids who are just lazy. Let me just tell you this. That's a problem, and it's fixable. And if for any reason the shoe fits, bless your heart, it's fixable. All right, we're going to go on. I need to preface these next few thoughts with just a little background. I was saved at the age of 8 in Dayton, Ohio, at a church, the denomination of which I'll not mention. The fact of the matter is, as far as I can recall, the very first time I ever heard in the pulpit the plan of salvation was that day. I mean, I'd been in church a lot sooner than that, but that's the very first time I ever heard it. Generally speaking, I was there for another 10 years or so before, for reasons which are not important here, I left that church and went somewhere else, but I heard a lot of messages during that time, and I would tell you if I could, and I'm sure if there were a way to go back, that one verse was preached more than any other verse. And when that verse wasn't, the thought was. This is what they taught. And hello, class, can I tell you something? The verse is in the book, which means it's true. It's true. Here we go. I'm going to find it in a minute. 1 John 4:8. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. God is love. Can I tell you something? God is love. It's a problem taking some verses or portions of verses out of context because they can be misused, and certainly it happens. It does happen when verses are taken out of context and misused. But I don't know if you could. I don't know. God is love. I'm sorry, He is. God so loved. Hello, class. God loves. God loved. And that was really the basis of their message. There were some other things that might have been included, which for whatever reason were not. It might also explain why it took an evangelist coming to that church for the only time I know of he ever came to present the plan of salvation to a kid sitting down on the third row on the right-hand side. But in any event, I need you to know this. There are some things that God hates. He does hate. Oh, yes, He does. I don't recall ever hearing that word in that service. Incidentally, that's kind of a strong word. I was telling my wife today that I have a vivid recollection of a real solid taste of soap in my mouth one time when my mama heard me use that word, and I shouldn't have. I'd like to swallow that whole bar of soap. I think she'd have been happy if I did. But whatever the case, we need to know this. God does hate. There are 7 things listed in the next verses. You may be familiar with them. If you're not, we're going to go through them quickly, briefly. That's maybe a better word than quickly. There are 7 things that the Lord hates, among other things. In Proverbs, there's at least 2 other occasions. Depends on how you divide it up a little bit, where we're told about specific things that God hates. But there's 7 of them here. And so, let's agree with this. We do agree. This is unanimous. You vote with me. I'm just telling you do. If God hates it, we want to know about it. We absolutely do. If God hates it, if it's that strong, it's something that would be good for us to know. Let's learn what God hates. Now, incidentally, there's a possibility that one of these or more of these 7 things may be uncomfortably close. I need you to remember 1 John 1:9. If we confess our sins, He's faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all of the things that He hates that we did, all unrighteousness. So I want to go through these, but I'm just telling you, if any of them are uncomfortable to you, I can tell you that you can do, if you haven't, what I did, which was 1 John 1:9. And He's faithful and just. Okay, here we go. These 6 things that the Lord hates, ye 7 are abomination unto Him. Now, I don't know why it says it this way. I promise you this. I promise you it's not as though somebody forgot. Whoa. There's 7. There's 7. The Holy Spirit told the scrivener, there's 7 things. I mean, that's not what happened. It's a stylistic thing. In the 30th chapter, which, Lord willing, sometime before the rapture or not, we'll get to, it's several times. There's 3 things. No, there's 4. There's 3 things. Yeah, there's 4. 3 things. Yeah, there's 4. 3 things. Yeah, there's 4. So it's just a stylistic kind of a thing. But there's 7. Hello, class. There's 7, and it goes a little beyond that. Our abomination unto Him. Now, the abomination thing. I'm sorry. It adds a little weight to me. It's as though He finds it disgusting. These things are just bad. The first one. Now, a proud look. Now, you see there's 3 of them in the first verse there, but 3 of the 7. But the very first one of all is a proud look. Now, I don't know why that's first. I don't know why. As far as I know, that they're not put in any particular order. but it does, at least coincidentally, happen to be first. A proud look. Why is that so bad, do you suppose? Well, I have a verse. It's in Psalms 10, verse 4. Please listen carefully. The wicked, through pride. The wicked through pride of his countenance, the way he looks, the way he comes across. The wicked because of the way he presents himself, because of his aura. The wicked, because through the pride of his countenance, will not seek after God. God is not in all his thoughts. So, when someone has this proud look about them, what that's saying is, I'm self-sufficient. I got it. I got it covered. Please don't misunderstand me. I get it. That there are people who have a serious case of a lack of self-esteem. I get it. And that's not good. I'm sorry, it's just not good. It's hard to be all that the Lord wants us to be if we don't value what the Lord values, and that is us the way he created us. I'm sorry. We're not an accident. We're not junk. We're special. But we have no reason to be proud. None. Zero, zip, none. And shame on us if we are. In my Bible fellowship class on Sunday morning, the instructor who's sitting back here brought up John chapter 15. It's one of my favorite books, one of my favorite chapters, but here's what it says, John 15:5. I am the vine, you are the branches. He that abideth in me and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me, Jesus speaking, ye can do squat. Now, squat, frankly, is a new translation, roughly 30 seconds old. For without me, you can do nothing. You got that? You got that? Whatever you think you got to be proud about, without him, you got nothing. 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 A proud look. That's the first one. Second one's a lying tongue. Now, for whatever reason, as far as I know, we need to teach little children to walk, to say pappy. First thing should be pappy or papa. We need to teach them to eat, but we do not need to teach them to lie. I'm sorry. We do not need to teach them to lie. Here we go, Psalms 58:3. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. Lies are a problem. And let me just tell you, you may know people that are what I call, they lie when there's no special reason to, when there's no good reason to. They're pathological. That's the word I'm looking for. They're pathological liars. I mean, you know people like that. I've known some folks like that. And incidentally, this is the second reason that a person is not employable or they're not advanceable, according to Bob Snelling, if they're not honest. You can't work with somebody. You can't advance somebody who is not honest. Period. Period. John 8:44. You're of your father the devil. Jesus speaking to Pharisees. The lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there was no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. The father of lies, the devil. Lying is not good. And let me just tell you this. If, for any reason, you engage in conversation with somebody, and I'm thinking of somebody who's impressionable, and probably we all are to some extent, some maybe because of age are more impressionable than others, but who has a problem with that needs to be fixed. That needs to be fixed sooner than later. There needs to be, in my view, a cost associated with that kind of behavior, because it is a serious problem. Lying is. All right, here we go. A proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood. Well, we're going to park here for a few minutes, and I can tell you I'm watching the time a little bit, and I don't know how much further we'll get past this, because we're going to park here for a few minutes. I think this is kind of important. I want you to think back with me for a moment to the time that our country was founded. And I want you to kind of picture the people involved in that. And many of those folks we hold in very high esteem. I do personally. My son, who teaches at UVA, has his Twitter thing. He teaches at Mr. Jefferson's University, teaches econ at Jefferson's University. And, you know, whether he was the one we should pattern ourselves after, there were some really, really good men and women at the beginning of our country. But you either knew or didn't know that our Constitution said, the original Constitution said, that African Americans, black people, are 3/5 of a person. That's right, it does. You find a copy of the Constitution, it'll be lines through it because, of course, that's not recognized now, but that was in the original Constitution, 3/5 of a person. They did that to account for populations where there were slaves. And we started thinking, what were they thinking? What were going through their minds to say something like that? And you know or don't know that, of course, in many cases, those slaves were beaten and some were lynched. And you know what? I can tell you that they may have done some things they shouldn't have. As far as I know, they're people, and everybody does things they shouldn't have. So you say they're innocent? Well, actually, they're certainly innocent of a capital crime committed against the state. I promise you they were innocent of that. And we've got to wonder, what were people thinking? Well, what was going through the minds of our people not that long ago? I have lived during a period of time when there were lynchings. What were they thinking? My wife read a book recently. It was circulated amongst some of our kids, and about Bonhoeffer. You may recognize the name. He was a Jew that lived through all but the last 5 days of World War II. And she became familiar with many of the things involved in the Holocaust. And it's like she's just shocked by that. And she has a different view about lots of things now because of that. But she wonders, and I wonder, what were they thinking? What were the Germans thinking? And if there were Poles involved or Austrians involved, I'm sorry, I don't know, I'm not sure. But what were they thinking when they gassed or otherwise slaughtered 6 million Jews? Now, were those Jews innocent? Well, they weren't any more. I mean, I'm sure they did some things they shouldn't have done, but they were not guilty of a capital crime. They were not guilty of a capital crime. What were those Germans thinking? Some of them, presumably, were believers. Some of them, presumably, we may meet someday. What were they thinking when they enabled, that to happen? What were they thinking? But before we get too far, the best example I could think of this is abortion. Maybe the African Americans, the blacks, had done some things in their life they shouldn't have done, even though they were not guilty of a capital crime, not found guilty in a court of law of a capital crime, and same with the Jews. But let's disagree that those unborn babies were innocent. Yes, they were. Yes, they are. I can tell you that I find as troubling as it's possible to be that we have since 1973 aborted more babies than all of the Jews that died in the Holocaust by a factor of 10. Now, you either saw or didn't see that there was a news article. Yesterday I picked it up. Supreme Court on Monday agreed to hear Mississippi's appeal and Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization to decide the fate of the state's Gestational Age Act. I'm sorry I'm going quickly, but whatever. That law, passed in 2018 and held in limbo ever since by the courts, bans abortion after 15 weeks, except in 2 instances, medical emergency or in case of a severe fetal abnormality. So the Supreme Court has agreed to hear. It takes 4 justices to agree to hear a case before it is actually considered by the Supreme Court. And it's supposed to be in the next term, which I think we'll hear in the fall or maybe in the spring. I don't know what the 9 justices decide about that, but clearly that is a huge step forward in terms of protecting life. A huge step forward. Although many abortions, of course, take place before 15 weeks. but with respect to these two exceptions, of course, those will be litigated. The two are medical emergency or in case of severe fetal abnormality. Now, here's where I may go past where some of you like me to go. Write the preacher. Before you acquiesce to exceptions, I'm not sure how I feel about these. These may be fine. But before you acquiesce to exceptions, the two exceptions cited the most, including by people who are pro-life, are no abortions except in the case of incest or rape. Now, I want you just to think about this for a moment, please. If at conception a child is conceived, and someone has to die for the crime of rape or incest, why should it be the child? That's my view. That's my view. If it's a capital crime, rape or incest, and can I tell you something? I'm not speaking to that. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it should be, I don't know. Maybe they should be. But I'm 100% sure that it's not the child that committed the crime. And there you have it. Hands that shed innocent blood. I want you to please think carefully now. I don't know how you've tracked this since 1973. I remember this. I remember Roe v. Wade. And there's another case, Casey v. Planned Parenthood, Planned Parenthood, that actually is much more specific than Roe v. Wade, which is technically not the law of the land right now. Roe v. Wade isn't. Casey is. And there have been some other in the progeny that speak to that. But I need you to think about this, please. We had an example last week of what we would say to the Lord if we needed to explain something to Him. I want you to kind of think about what you would say to the Lord and what you would say to the next generation, if you ever have a chance to, if we live that long. If they say to us, "What were you thinking? What were you thinking?" I'm not saying we have people here who have been involved directly in that activity, but I wonder what the people, the early Americans, were thinking. I wonder what the Germans were thinking, and bless our hearts, I wonder what we're thinking sometimes when we have not done everything we could. We have had, and we still have, the opportunity to do something. I'm sorry, I'm getting political, and I really don't want to do this. I'm sorry. Write the preacher is all I can say. But I'm sorry, I feel rather strongly about this, and frankly, I think it fits. I think it fits. Whatever the case, that's the third one. There's three others, and I really am inclined to press on, even though I'm running out of time. In fact, I have run out of time. I don't know. Here we go. Heart that deviseth wicked imaginations. So here we go. Some people look for trouble. They just look for trouble. Looking for trouble. It seems as though they sit around and try to dream up ways to be involved in things that are not appropriate. I'd be real shocked if I was talking to anybody here directly that was involved in something like this, but there's some folks who do. That's what they do. There's probably some other things we could say about that and have a conversation. There's at least one of the remaining ones that I really want to focus on for a minute, and I am sensitive to the time. Feet to be swift and running to mischief. I don't know if you've paid attention or not. We don't really watch the news on TV, but I do track the news. I think it's important for believers to know what's going on, and I like to know. And that's how, of course, I found out about this Supreme Court case on abortion coming up. But whatever the case, I see that there's some people who were doing some things that were clearly unambiguously illegal over a period of time, and they were arrested and they posted bond, and they got out and they literally ran back to do exactly the same thing again. Now, of course, people do that. They do that kind of a thing. It's like a dog returning to its vomit. They just can't wait to do the wrong thing. And I think about those people, and I'm thinking, I don't know anybody personally like that. But you know what? My mind then goes to something like this. There's some otherwise respectable people who run to the gossip fence. or can't wait to get back to the next episode of that TV program that does nothing towards honoring the Lord. Can't wait for the next one to come on. Binge watch. That's one of the 7. False witnesses speaketh lies. Here we go. This is different than the lie, the beginning. This is when there has been, when it's more of a formal proceeding. We would consider this to be something like lying under oath, perjury. That's what this is talking about. And I would tell you, particularly in that time, that was a particularly bad thing. You'll recognize this verse, or you won't. In the mouth of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses, he that is worthy of death shall be put to death, and at the mouth of 1 witness he shall not be put to death. In other words, if 2 witnesses would say there was a reason to have somebody put to death, they were put to death. I'm sorry. It's pretty important for those 2 witnesses to be telling the truth. Of course, we know of at least one instance when that didn't happen. Got this guy named Naboth who had a vineyard. You know the story. Ahab wanted the vineyard. Naboth says, "I'm not selling it to you." He says, "I want it." And he goes home and he pouts. His wife, that virtuous woman named Jezebel, said, paragon of virtue is a better way of saying it. She said, "You're the king. What's the problem here? We'll fix this. I'll get you this thing." And so she found two men, children of Belial. Another translation is of Satan, but they're just bad guys. There's bad people. The men of Belial witnessed against him, Naboth, in the presence of people, saying, "Naboth did blaspheme God and the king." Then they stoned him that he died. Well, there's at least one instance where they found 2 witnesses to testify falsely against Jesus too, perhaps because they wanted to legally satisfy the requirements of the verse in Deuteronomy. It's not a good thing. It is not a good thing for a person under oath to say something is not true. I wish it was as important now. We had a trial. I'm really sensitive to the time. I'm sorry, but we had a trial in Orlando. I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago. I sort of forget. Time gets away from hillbillies. And in any event, it was televised, and I was teaching at the time the very thing that was happening, trial practice. And so my teaching assistant, sitting in a booth, would fire that sucker up when something happened, and we would all watch it together. And I witnessed people take an oath and lie as big as anything. We know they lie because they say something contrary to that the next time. As far as I know, nobody was ever prosecuted in the Casey Anthony trial for perjury. And one of the reasons why it seems to be like there should be a cost associated with it should help teach somebody else. That's not the kind of a thing you ought to do. We do have a former president. If I mention his name, it would probably be familiar to you, who lost his law license. Can't practice law, not that he necessarily wants to, because of perjury. So perjury, just so you know, if you're interested, if it's an unofficial setting in the state of Florida, there's a year in jail, up to a year in jail, and a $1,000 fine. If you're convicted of perjury, if it's an official proceeding, and I would say that's in a trial proceeding, it's a felony, 3rd-degree felony, and it's 5 years in jail, up to 5 years, and a $5,000 fine. So at least there are teeth. It's just that it does seem like they don't bite people, at least as often as I think they probably should. I'm going to get this last one in, one way or another. He sowed discord among the brethren. This is talking about siblings. This is talking about siblings. It's a bad thing. God hates it. It's an abomination to him, people who cause problems within families. If you'll recall, there was the very first siblings ever. There was a problem, was there not? Jacob's sons had a problem with other siblings, and David, bless his heart, we keep using David for an example, but he was a man after God's own heart. But his kids did not get along. All sorts of problems among them. Let me just tell you this. I don't know how it is in your family. I don't know how, I don't know. All I know is this, that people that cause problems within the family, that's one of these 7 no-nos. That's a no-no. And that's clearly something which is not appropriate. God hates it. It's an abomination unto him. You've been patient. I thank you very much. We're past time. I'm going to have a word of prayer, and then Andy's going to come and commence his activity of praying. All right, here we go. Father, we thank you so much for the truth of your word. Lord, we're so grateful for the way you bless us. Lord, thank you for the way that we can learn, and for the interest we have in these precious people, and they want to just get what you've got for them. Lord, we just pray now that you'll be with the remainder of this service, and that you'll be able to discern some special prayer requests that are brought to you at this time. And Lord, we thank you so much for the opportunity to do that very thing. And then we'll be careful to give you the